dream where I'm falling and calling out. My resistance is silent. I can feel, but I still can't control myself. Please forgive me now. Now. Shadow, nothing, all I am. Stalking, killing, all I can. I was born from eternal night, fighting
4chan. This online message board is mostly harmless and enjoyed by millions of people. But every so often, a post emerges on this site that is deeply disturbing. This is especially true of the site's random board, or as it's known on the site, B, where users can post whatever they want anonymously. A few of these posts have been covered by other YouTubers such as Gloomy House and The Gamer from Mars. Both are awesome channels, and I'd like to personally thank Gloomy House who helped me research this video. I definitely recommend you check him out after this. Now, without further ado, here are 9 disturbing 4chan posts. Number 1. This post dates back all the way to 2007, where an anonymous 4chan user who had intentionally hidden his IP address asked this simple question on the random board. What does B keep in the freezer? Guess what's in mine? Joke responses started to come back quickly, such as a cat, urine, and a body. However, the fun and games ended there, after the original poster congratulated the previous user's response, revealing that there was indeed a severed human leg inside his freezer, and more human body parts inside a black bin liner. A subsequent image was then posted of the user's forearm with a timestamp in front of the freezer, proving this was indeed an authentic post. Due to the lengths that the poster went to in order to remain anonymous, no more was ever uncovered about this incident. But it really makes you wonder what other secrets are being hidden by seemingly normal people that we come into contact with every day. Number 2. In 2013, this image of a young man in a makeshift cage beneath a bed was posted on 4chan's random board, along with a disturbing message. The message stated that the boy was from Japan and was a hiki, short for hikikomori, a Japanese term referring to young adults with no social lives or skills, somewhat similar to the term otaku. The user claims that the boy was desperate for money, and that since they had money themselves, they could, quote-unquote, offer him anything he wanted, but in return, he had to live with me and take female hormone injections, as well as take care of himself and dress in cute clothes. Seemingly with no other alternative, the boy apparently took up the offer. Disturbingly, the user concludes with their thoughts on how the boy seemed happy, how well they thought the hormone treatments were going, and how they thought that the boy was gaining weight in all the right places. What the user's intentions are, or were, with the boy remain unknown, but no more was ever heard from them after this post. Was this some sort of joke, or sick bragging from an anonymous user who enjoyed experimenting on others? That remains unclear, since nobody knows who the boy or the poster are, but many believe the post to be authentic, and the image and story has stuck with them. Number 3. In 2010, a young woman named Rachel Wisner created a post on 4chan asking users to buy her pizza. In return, she told them that she would post pictures of her breasts. She did indeed get the free pizza she desired, bought for her by other users. But rather than stay true to her word, she instead uploaded an image of herself with a message saying that she lied, and later took to Facebook to brag about how she had epically trolled 4chan. As you can imagine, the 4chan community did not take this well, and they set out for revenge. Certain users were able to get a hold of Rachel's Facebook account and discovered that she was planning on flying to Africa. On the day of her flight, 4chan users phoned up the airport, claiming that Rachel had a bomb to ensure that she would miss her flight. Users were also able to uncover more and more about Rachel's personal life, including her phone number, which high school she attended, and even her address. They also threatened to reveal private details about her to her friends and her family. In the end, the 4chan users got what they originally were promised by blackmailing Rachel into uploading topless pictures of herself. This whole incident has become known as Rachel Wisner vs 4chan, and goes to show you that you should never try to incur the wrath of the internet. Number 4. In late 2012, an anonymous user, supposedly high on Class A drugs, posted a photo of a syringe filled with a fluorescent blue liquid, asking others to offer suggestions on which part of his body he should inject it into. After being questioned, he provided a timestamp to show that he was indeed being serious. One user suggested he inject the substance into his wrist. The original poster accepted this request and uploaded pictures of the whole process. At one point, he uploads a picture of the needle in his wrist with the simple caption of "veins glowing." After this series of image uploads, the user fell silent and was never heard from on the thread again. Theories started popping up throughout the community about what the outcome of this experiment might have been. Many speculated about what the mysterious liquid was, with some stating that it was glow stick fluid, and others suggesting dye that glows under UV lighting. Some claim that this post was a hoax, but others remain adamant that it was legitimate, and that he likely suffered a cardiac arrest. All that is certain is that this post offers up more questions than it does answers. We might never know the truth about this incident, but it's extremely unsettling to think about. Number 5. This is one of the darkest pranks ever conceived, with only one goal in mind: to affect as many innocent people as possible. A user posted instructions on how to easily make some homemade beautiful crystals and asked others to post their results. The ingredients he said were needed were all household items that could easily be obtained, including copper pennies, ammonia, and bleach, as well as some other supplies. These ingredients were meant to all be mixed into a jar. The final instruction was to blow into the mixture through a straw, and that within 30 seconds the crystals would begin to form. The simplicity of this entire process and the promise of some beautiful decorations tempted some users into trying this out. However, unsuspecting victims had no idea that what they were actually doing was producing chlorine gas. When this gas is breathed in, it causes burning to the lungs and the windpipe, and is extremely dangerous. Scientifically savvy users of 4chan tried to warn others not to attempt to make the crystals, but by then it was already too late. Nobody knows exactly how many people were affected by this post, but a few days later, another anonymous user posted that they were hospitalized as a result of attempting to make the crystals, and that they came very close to losing their life. Number 6. There's been a couple of stories of people doing crazy things with grenades on online message boards, such as the guy who dropped a live grenade down a toilet. But this post from 2012 is pretty messed up, simply because of the insane lengths that the guy goes to experiment with a grenade that he found out in the woods. He asked other 4chan users what he should do with the device, starting with pulling the pin. After having a look at it in the pictures, one user informed the original poster that the device was unlikely to be a drill grenade and was probably still dangerous. Regardless, the unknown figure remained hell-bent on getting the grenade to do something of interest. After the top of the grenade falls off, the original poster goes on to microwave it, burn it in a small fire, and even run it over in his car, all the while complaining that nothing was happening. After this final image, the user never responded to any more messages or requests, and was never heard from again. Number 7. Perhaps the most infamous of all of the posts so far, This incident took place on November 4th, 2014. An anonymous user posted an image of a naked, lifeless female with the caption, "Turns out it's way harder to strangle someone to death than it looks in the movies." The woman's skin had started to grey, and there were marks across her throat. Reverse image searches revealed that this picture had never been used on the internet before, and was thus not just taken from a website and re-uploaded. Though the image was extremely convincing, many users started to claim that the whole thing was staged and merely a well put together hoax. Adamant to prove that he wasn't lying, the original poster uploaded more pictures of the body, with the caption, "She fought so damn hard." He then went on to tell those who still didn't believe that the body was real, that her son would soon be back home from school and would discover her, and that they should keep an eye on the news. He also mentioned that he would pull a realistic BB gun when the cops found him, and that he would effectively commit suicide that way. Less than an hour after the post was created, police discovered the corpse of a woman in the city of Port Orchard, Washington, after responding to a call from a young boy who had discovered the body of his own mother. Turns out that the original poster had been truthful about his horrendous act, but failed to live up to the promise of committing suicide by cop. The man, named David Kalloch, turned himself into the police for the murder of his girlfriend, Amber Coplin. At the scene of the crime, the words, "She killed me first," were written on the bedroom wall. "Bad news" was written on the bedroom blinds, and simply the word "dead" was written on her driver's license. In court, he admitted, "I strangled her with my hands, then a shoelace I had. She pissed me off." Number 8. Perhaps not as disturbing as the other entries on this list, but definitely as intriguing, are the Cicada 3301 posts. This all began on January 5th, 2012, when an anonymous user posted this cryptic image on the B-board of 4chan on behalf of a group or organisation that went by the name 3301, stating that they were in search of highly intelligent individuals for some undisclosed project. The post itself was a puzzle, with a hidden message amongst the text. It would later be discovered that this secret message served as the first clue in what can be best described as the world's largest and most difficult treasure hunt. This post piqued the curiosity of many users, until a computer analyst from Sweden was able to crack the first encrypted clue. This led him, and some others, to various other websites to tackle other extremely difficult puzzles, and eventually to real-world locations across the globe. This included destinations in Korea, Japan, Spain, Australia, Russia, France, Poland, Mexico, and various parts of the USA, proving that this was more than just an elaborate hoax. 1 month after the original 4chan post, Cicada 3301 returned to the site and posted another image, stating that they had indeed found the intelligent individuals they wanted to find. Each year since, they have returned to the site to begin a new recruitment process. There are countless theories as to who this secret group actually are, and for what purpose they need to find such intelligent people. Some claim they are a government recruitment agency, and others claim they are a cyber mercenary group. Ultimately, these questions remain unanswered, since the people smart enough to solve the puzzles and complete Cicada's tests have never come forward publicly to disclose any further information. Why they have been sworn to secrecy remains a mystery. All that is certain is that Cicada 3301 are a well-connected and well-funded global body with connections in many different nations. Number 9. on the 21st of August 2015. This was posted by an anonymous user on 4chan's B-board. I have killed several women for pleasure. If you can guess a name of any of these women, I will upload their photo. No more than 10 names per post. Any more than that will be ignored. Some are Polaroids, and others were taken with a disposable camera. I also have pictures of them before death, when I was able to do so. If you can guess all of the names, I will show you where I dumped a body in 1999. The first one is free, since her name is unlikely to be guessed. As is to be expected, many users believe this to be no more than a practical joke, but they played along anyway. Quickly, somebody guessed a correct name, and the original poster stayed true to his word and posted another photo with a timestamp. People continued to call the post fake when another photo was uploaded. This is before I played with her. Many people were starting to believe that this post was real, but some were claiming that these pictures could be police crime scene photos rather than those taken by a serial killer. However, the images lacked the evidence markers that are used in crime scene pictures. What's more, the photographic style was not in keeping with how crime scene photos were usually taken, featuring unsettling close-ups of a decomposing face and other disturbing details. In total, 4 pictures were posted. Some users decided to do a reverse image search of the first picture. This brought them to a police report of a 17-year-old murder victim named Shauna Maynard. Shauna had been shot multiple times and dumped on the road. Her killer had never been found. The images posted had all been genuine. They were sickening mementos taken by the murderer and shown off on an anonymous online platform. The FBI was informed by users, and a recorded conversation between one of the website's users and an FBI operator can be heard on Gloomy House's channel. Whether he was done with gloating about his crimes or scared away due to the community's uproar and FBI involvement, the original poster has not been heard from since. This all happened very recently, and the killer is still at large. A link in the description will take you to a recently archived post where other 4chan users came together to try and solve the mystery. Hi guys, Lazy here, and thank you very much for watching. Like I said at the beginning, some of these have already been covered by channels like Gloomy House, but he does some other great videos, guys. If you ever watched my disturbing Wikipedia pages video, you might recall the morbid police sketches of murder victims who were never identified. The truly unsettling element was the fact that the images didn't quite make it to the other side of the uncanny valley. They were the ghostly portraits of people who were once alive like you and I, but who we know nothing about. This was them, but not really. Taking that one step further is this post on Reddit. 9 months ago, user When Machines Cry posted a link on the site. The link takes you to a set of police sketches, this time of serial killers and other criminals who, to this day, haven't been caught. Along with each picture is a description of the suspect and their crimes. The Connecticut River Killer, thought to be responsible for the murder of at least 7 women in the Claremont, New Hampshire, and River Valley areas. Each female had been stabbed as many as 29 times. His final victim, a pregnant woman, was stabbed multiple times and left for dead. Miraculously, she survived and made it to her car. As she drove off to find help, she inadvertently caught up with her attacker, who was driving in the car in front of her. She managed to escape and tell the police everything she could. After that, the killer's activity in the area came to a sudden stop, but he was never apprehended. The Burger Chef massacre suspects, a duo that murdered 4 Burger Chef employees in 1978, all for the grand total of $500. It wasn't a simple robbery gone wrong, however. In fact, the police thought the employees had taken the money themselves and gone out partying, since there were no traces of them at the restaurant. In reality, they had all been kidnapped by the 2 unknowns. 2 days after going missing, all 4 of their bodies were found 20 miles away in a field. 2 of them had been executed by a shot to the head. 1 had been stabbed, and 1 was beaten to death with a chain. All 4 were between the ages of 16 and 20. Zeb Quinn's abductor. In January 2000, a man called Zeb Quinn disappeared under mysterious circumstances. This woman is believed to be one of those responsible. Quinn was out with a friend, Rob Owens, when he received a call. Owens doesn't know what the call was about, but Quinn became frantic, hopped in his car, and left in a hurry. He was never seen again, but his car was. Witnesses described the driver to the police, and this was the reconstruction they came up with. 2 weeks later, the car was found in a parking lot, next to the hospital where Quinn's mother worked. Inside was a live Labrador mix puppy, along with several empty bottles of alcohol, and a jacket that didn't belong to Quinn. Strangely, a pair of lips were drawn on the back windshield. Bible John. A man that murdered 3 mothers in Glasgow by strangling them with their own nylons. He would go out to a local club called Barrowland Ballroom, meet unsuspecting women, gain their trust by dancing with them the whole night, and then head back to their place. All of their bodies were found near their respective homes the morning after they'd been out. The only person to get a good look at him was the final victim's sister, who had shared a taxi with the 2 of them after their night at the club. She said that he constantly quoted numerous scriptures from the Bible, leading to his well-known nickname, Bible John. This is one of the most talked about cases in Scottish history, and so many Glaswegian men were taken in for questioning and DNA swabs that they were actually given official cards to prove they weren't the killer. One suspect was the target of a massive media smear campaign, which led to him committing suicide. He was later proved to be completely innocent. Some believe that the killer was one of the police officers working the case, though that's only hearsay, and at this point, it seems unlikely that the real identity of Bible John will ever be known. That's only a handful of the cases the Post covers. In my eyes, it's somewhat unsettling to see the reconstructed faces of these psychopathic killers, unsafe in the knowledge that they could still be living amongst us. Lake City Quiet Pills is a Reddit mystery that started 7 years ago when a user called 26 made a post about the passing of his friend, another Redditor with the username Religion of Peace, real name Milo. Apparently, he had a heart attack at the age of 79. 26 was the old man's only companion, and he described him as a miserable bastard he was going to miss. Their friendship centered around the fact that 26 provided the space for a website that Milo ran, a website known as That Old Guy's Image Host. Altogether, the post is pretty sad, but it's simple enough, and on surface value seems to just be a small memorial to an old chum that didn't have much of a life outside of Reddit. The replies are mostly from other users paying their respects, since Religion of Peace, Milo, was a big part of the online community. Digging through his account history, it became apparent that Religion of Peace was a moderator for a subreddit, and was also a World War II veteran. He wrote about a number of his wartime experiences in great detail on various threads. The essence of this mystery, though, lies in his website. You won't find anything special there. It's pretty much just full of porn images. However, a number of people decided to take a closer look at it, and a few strange things came to light. Firstly, despite being called That Old Guy's Image Host, the site had the strange domain name LakeCityQuietPills.com. On top of that, secret coded messages could be found in the HTML. Just a string of seemingly meaningless information. Over time, these messages changed, suggesting that the site was using encrypted hashes. As a result, a lot of people thought this to be some sort of internet numbers station, but others had a different idea. Decrypting the messages, it became apparent that the codes weren't meaningless after all. They seemed to be a way for people to communicate with each other covertly. A way for Milo to send out key information to some unknown associates. As you can see, the messages are rather cryptic. So what were these hidden messages about? Who were they meant for? And what exactly was the meaning behind the phrase Lake City Quiet Pills? As it turns out, Religion of Peace was more than a simple World War II veteran. He apparently had some kind of expertise in the field of killing people. This, mixed with the suspicious content of the hidden messages, have led many to believe that the site was being used by hitmen to pass along vital information about specific jobs, using party as a code word. As for the phrase Lake City Quiet Pills, a lot of people now believe it to have a more sinister meaning. Several theories are floating around on the site, suggesting that Religion of Peace might have been some kind of online organizer of hitmen who spent his downtime browsing Reddit. Some think he'd advertise available jobs, give out specific client requests, and take commissions for his role. Some also believe that in an effort to keep him quiet, his associates may have decided to shut him up permanently. The old man was pretty vocal online, and could have compromised the entire operation. Milo may have been forced to fake his death and stay off of online forums, or may have literally been silenced. There's so much information out there on this mystery that I can't really go into all of the details here. If you feel like doing a little internet sleuthing yourself, you can find all sorts of threads about it. Admittedly, it's a bit of a wild story, but I definitely suggest checking it out further in your free time, and coming to your own conclusions. If nothing else, it's a disturbing set of posts. "7 months ago, one Reddit user got a notification from their smart home app in the middle of the night, saying, 'Your doorbell has detected a visitor.' Checking the camera that monitored the entrance to their home, they were relieved to find that nobody was there. The next night, the user was again awoken by multiple notifications. It was the same message, saying that there was a visitor at the front door. The camera still showed nothing, so the user brushed it off, figuring that a stray animal kept setting off the sensor. On the third night, they continued to receive notifications, but presumed it was nothing serious. Then, at 4:07 AM, their phone buzzed one more time. They checked the front door camera, and saw this. Less than 2 weeks ago, a post was made on Ask Reddit, posing one simple question. What's the scariest way to die? Well, I'm sure you have your own answers for that. Everyone does. So it stands to reason there were a bunch of detailed responses. Some designed to make you laugh, and some downright horrible to think about. What I found to be the most disconcerting responses, however, were the ones that described the worst ways in which people had actually died in reality. Many of them are truly gruesome to read about, and will probably make you want to never leave the house again. In my eyes, though, the worst one that came up was the story of John Jones, an American spelunker. Caving's a personal phobia of mine, but no matter what personally terrifies you, this one has to be pretty high on everyone's scariest way to go list. Back in 2009, Jones was out exploring caves in Utah County. While checking out an unmapped section of Nutty Putty Cave, the 26-year-old fell headfirst down a narrow tunnel and became trapped, upside down, unable to move. There was no way to wriggle through the tunnel to freedom either, as it led to a dead end. To give you an idea of just how tightly stuck he was, the tunnel was about the width of a washing machine opening. With his arms clamped by his side, John was unable to even try to push himself back up the passage. Even if he could, it would have been futile. The passage he was trapped in wasn't straight. There were curves. As such, his feet ended up hitting the ceiling of the small crevice where he was now lodged. For hours, John would remain at an almost 90-degree angle, completely locked in place. Rescuers were alerted by those who were out caving with John. Right now, time was of the essence. Since John was stuck upside down, blood and other fluids were pooling in his head and lungs. What's more, the pressure on his torso from being so tightly wedged in made it extremely hard to breathe. He was constantly gasping for breath, only barely getting enough oxygen to survive. According to Sheriff Sean Roundy, John was trapped in literally the worst spot in the cave. More than 100 people joined the effort to get him out, and a pulley system was devised to do just that. After hours of trying to reach him, one rescuer was able to secure a rope around John's legs. There was one major problem though. Because of the position John was trapped in, they'd have to break his legs to even have a chance of getting him out. The shock of which, coupled with being upside down and compressed on the chest area, would likely prove to be fatal. John had been trapped down there for 24 hours at this point, and pulling him out would take a few more hours at least, so there didn't seem to be much choice. Then, disaster. Due to equipment problems, the rope system failed and was no longer an option. Rescuers were now back at square one. They managed to get a police radio down to John, who was able to talk to his wife and family one last time. As the rescuers frantically scrambled to find a way of dislodging him, John became unresponsive, and after being trapped for 27 hours, was pronounced dead. Rescuers were never able to retrieve John's body. The part of the cave where he now rests has simply been sealed off. Now, this is a peculiar one. Just over a month ago, users who used to work in photo development were asked to share the most memorable pictures they had come across on the job. As you can probably imagine, lots of the replies revolved around strange sexual fetishes. But perhaps the strangest came from a user called Ninesoft, who wrote about an encounter he had back in 1999. He described how one day he developed a roll of film that had the most convincing pictures of UFOs he had ever seen, and how in several of them there were strange figures standing in a field. He emphasized how convincing these photos were, and how no sci-fi could ever compete with what he saw in them. He then states that the owner of the film roll came back to the store, paid for the service, and got out of there. Now, it's an interesting and unexpected little story, but in any other thread, this post would have probably been lost. That likely would have been the case here too, had it not been for another user, Bad Alchemist, who simply replied, "Was this in Nebraska? Was the dude wearing a blue hat?" Turns out that Bad Alchemist had a friend who, at around about the same time, had similar experiences. The two of them described very similar encounters with a strange man who had photos developed of unknown creatures, more realistic than even modern-day technology could create. The plot only thickened further when another user, Gunk Rock Steady, also claimed to have had a similar experience in Broken Bow, Nebraska, describing a mysterious man in a blue hat who had similar pictures developed at his workplace. When he came to pick up his pictures, some of them had come out onto the counter, and I saw what I thought was an alien in a field, with a long tree line in the background. But because it's a little far-fetched, I tried to think nothing of it. But the whole thing really stuck with me, because he was wearing this nice blazer with a blue matching hat, and he was perspirating a lot and seemed to be in a rush. The whole thing left me feeling weird at the time, and now, reading your experience that occurred not far from me in Broken Bow, plus Bad Alchemist's experience, it's really bizarre. Despite no longer living in Nebraska, the three users have apparently agreed to meet in person to discuss their past experiences and try to work out what this whole thing was about. As of right now, there's been no new developments. If that changes, I'll be sure to keep you posted. Hi guys, Lazy here, and thank you very much for listening. So I hope you enjoyed these posts. I don't really like to cover all ground which other users have talked about before, so I hope they were mostly new to you. I can't make too many of this type of video because there's only so many posts to go around, you know. But hopefully in a couple more months I'll have another addition to this series. I think this is the third one I've done now, right? Yeah. But anyway, a big thank you to Anthony Salinas for the thumbnail for this video. He's an amazing talent, and as always, be sure to check him out via the links in the description below. If you did enjoy this video, then be sure to show your appreciation by grabbing that like button, taking it out for a nice seafood dinner, and then smashing the fudge out of it. Until next time guys, you all stay spooky. And remember, the best things happen in the dark. Almost 3 years ago, Reddit user RedOnceBlue80 shared a truly eerie experience that she captured using an app called Sleeper's Android. The app's used to help improve your sleep and records your nighttime noises, such as coughing, snoring, and all that jazz, essentially so you can analyze it the next morning. The results for the first couple of months were fairly unremarkable. Just the usual nighttime noises one would expect. At 2:04 AM on the 20th of December 2013, whilst asleep in bed with her 3-year-old child, this audio clip was captured.
What are you doing?
There was nobody else in the house at the time, well, that she knew of at least, so naturally this audio clip weirded her out. It sounded as if she was talking to someone else in the room, despite being asleep and having absolutely no memory of the exchange. There were also a lot of unusual, loud clicking sounds. Now your first thought might be that she was just mumbling in her sleep, but take another listen, now with the audio cleaned up a little.
What are you doing? Okay.
It's difficult to be sure what's being said at the very end of the clip. The user believes it's someone saying her name, Jenny. Others say they hear, "I'm dead," "I'm Danny," or "that's them." The audio has since been analysed by a professional, and though it is indeed her voice that says, "What are you doing?" it was determined that it's impossible for the other voice to be hers or her son's. In the words of the analyzer, the other person in the recording definitely isn't you talking to yourself, nor is it your son. Your voice's pitch in the question, "What are you doing?" is around 265 Hz, C4 in musical notes. The answerer's voice seems to be around 95 Hz, an F sharp too. That's a relatively low voice, even for a man. Some remain convinced that the user was the victim of a home invasion, and that Jenny inadvertently recorded her intruder. They say the unusual ambient noises sound as if someone's rummaging around the room, that the pause in the clicking noises and momentary silence after Jenny says, "What are you doing?" is down to the intruder being startled. Others think this recording is something more paranormal. There are some quite interesting theories to read about on the actual page linked below. Make sure to check it out if you're interested. Whatever the case, Jenny has since moved out of that house. After that, I can't really blame her. 3 years ago, a user by the name of Parthomp started a thread simply titled, "I think someone is following me." Attached were these pictures and the text. I noticed that one of my shocks on my car was making a lot of noise, and my car was riding hard, so I just figured that I'd blown it. When I crawled under my car, I found this. I can only assume it's a GPS tracker held on with a large magnet. Now, what should I do? Of course, conspiracies started flying around on the thread, saying that this was an FBI tracker. However, the box was quickly and correctly identified as a civilian purchasable GPS tracking device. This particular model was extremely accurate in pinpointing the location of its target, and cost between $400 and $800. So, who was stalking Parthomp? It soon came to light that the most likely suspect was his own distrustful girlfriend. Parthomp himself wrote, "About a month ago, it was a very close friend of mine's birthday. This is a girl. My now known crazy girlfriend doesn't like her at all for that very reason. Well, for a month I told my girlfriend I wasn't going to go to my friend's party at the casino. But when the time came up, I thought, screw this, I'm going. So I did, and all night my girlfriend called and called. I think it was 45 times or more. When I finally talked to her, she mysteriously knew more than she could have, but never told me how. Parthomp informed everyone in the thread that he had sent his girlfriend a text, hinting at what he had found under his car. All of a sudden, she stopped answering her phone. The plot thickened. Hungry for more information, other users kept asking for updates on the situation. Parthomp said that his girlfriend was at home. He wrote that he was going to confront her about it and keep everyone up to date on what happened next. And that's the last thing he posted. He went to confront his girlfriend and never returned to the thread, never made another post, and nobody knows what happened to him. He simply disappeared from the site. Now, of course, there's a lot of speculation about what happened next. Maybe he wanted to keep the truth private, and there was a good reason for the device being there. Maybe it was all just a prank, or a fraudulent post. Maybe something altogether more sinister happened to him, and his girlfriend was crazier than anyone anticipated. Ultimately, we'll probably never find out, but the post still gets talked about in certain corners of the site to this day, with users putting forward their own theories about what happened to Parthomp. Reddit loves a good mystery. Those of you who watched my last video might remember the mysterious story of Jimmy C. Personally, I think it's one of the most interesting and unsettling stories I've narrated on this channel, and it's worth bringing up again here, especially since the development. 5 months ago or so, a post appeared on the site asking users to share their unexplainable experiences. One reply stood out. The user wrote about an encounter he had about 10 years ago in a bar on Tybee Beach, Savannah, Georgia. He had taken the day off work to go fishing with his girlfriend, but instead decided to head over to the bar across from the beach. After a while, another man walks in and sits right between the user and his girlfriend, despite there being plenty of free seats in the place. He goes on to describe this man in great detail, from his bleached early 90s hairstyle to his filed teeth, piercing grey eyes, and expensive fashion sense, stating that everything seemed normal at first glance, but completely off at the same time. When the user and the man were alone, he introduces himself as Jimmy C and says that he jumped off the San Francisco Bay Bridge years ago, and that he's been keeping a watch on the user. The guy also says numerous things about the user, things he had no way of knowing, such as, "You were supposed to go fishing today. If you had, I would have drowned you in that ocean." Despite all this, the user felt nothing but a strange calmness and a sort of knowing feeling, something that his girlfriend also felt at the time. They both agreed that they didn't believe this guy was human. The girlfriend even said with certainty that that man was a demon. Now, Tybee Beach apparently has more than its fair share of eccentric characters hanging around, and the most obvious explanation would be that Jimmy C was just one of them. But the original poster says the whole situation was completely off, and that if you had experienced it, you too would understand that this guy was something other than a man. What that might be is, of course, debatable. The encounter ended with Jimmy C telling the guy that he'll see him again, and that the next time they meet, he'll be driving a black Mercedes, and the license plate will be Utopia. It's been 10 years since the incident took place, and it's haunted the Reddit user ever since, making him paranoid every time a black car passes by. Now, this story is pretty creepy by itself, but there's since been an update. The original post was taken down without explanation, and the poster hasn't been heard from since. But just this month, a new post appeared on the site with the title, "Remember the creepy story about Jimmy C and the black Mercedes? Update." This Reddit user had done a little detective work and found out that a black Mercedes with the Utopia license plate really did exist in California. Here's a portion of his post. "I discovered that it hadn't been registered with the DMV in a while, and had expired registration, and it hadn't been serviced in a while. It was as if it was just bought at the start of the year and then parked in a garage somewhere for months. I'd signed up for Carfax at the time with the car's info, and completely forgot about it, until I just got an email asking how the recent maintenance on the Mercedes went. So I logged in, and found that on Friday, the car was taken in to get new tyres put on it. Now here's what's interesting. Not only has the car apparently been registered and got new tyres, and thusly is apparently back on the road, but the place it was registered and taken for tyres is just a short drive away from the San Francisco Bay Bridge. I don't know if I'm allowed to post the name of the actual store for privacy's sake, but I will show you the place on the map. According to Google Maps, it's only a 21-minute drive. So, it seems like Jimmy C's back on the road. I find the whole thing really interesting, and if another update comes along, I'll be sure to keep you guys up to date. If you're interested in hearing the whole story, you can click on the annotation on screen and hear my narration of it. Otherwise, you can read the whole thing by following the link down in the description. Some of you might find this one a bit upsetting. A thread was made a year ago, where Reddit users that have killed someone in self-defense discussed their stories, and talked about the psychological repercussions they faced. A lot of the entries could have made it into the video, but the one I'm including here goes as follows. A Redditor, posting from a throwaway account for obvious reasons, was in his home office playing Command & Conquer, wearing a set of noise-cancelling headphones. Immersed in the game and oblivious to the outside world, he had no idea what was going on only 30 feet away. During one particularly quiet moment, he thought he could hear the faint cries of his wife coming from downstairs. Taking off his headphones, he could hear his 20-month-old daughter crying, and an unknown man with a thick Mexican accent telling his wife to shut the hell up. As if he was running on autopilot, the Reddit user took his .45 out of his lockbox and walked downstairs quietly, terrified he was going to find his wife dead at the bottom. He doesn't even remember doing any of this at the time. When he reached the bottom and opened the door to where the noises were coming from, he saw something that doesn't bear thinking about. There was a man in the middle of raping his wife. He would later find out this had been going on for 10 minutes before he heard what was happening. Here's a section of his post. I never said a word to the guy. Not while I was upstairs, not while I was coming down the stairs, and not when I walked into the room. His back was to me, so he had no idea I was even standing there. He was holding his knife in his right hand, so that was the arm I grabbed with my left when I pulled him off. He spun away from her and towards me with a confused look on his face, and I shot him in the chest at nearly point-blank range before he had a chance to say a single word. His face went pale as he went onto one knee, and I fired twice more. One hit his neck, and the second missed entirely. I was told later that the first shot was the fatal one. That's the short version of the story. Given the circumstances, the police didn't pursue any charges. As you can imagine, this was a highly traumatic experience for the user, as well as all of the other users who posted their stories too. Many of them involve home invasions and random attacks. We can only hope that we don't find ourselves in a similar situation. Truesels is a community on Reddit made up of some of the most deplorable people on the internet. If you don't know what a truesel is, these guys sum it up pretty neatly. The majority of us accept that it's okay to have differing opinions on things. In fact, it's a good thing. But these guys take it to an extreme. They're essentially a subreddit full of pro-rape, pro-pedophilia, pro-violence users who occasionally dabble in a little racism here and there, blaming others for their own inadequacies. For example, they might show a time-lapse of a girl growing from a baby to the age of 16, and they'll all discuss at what age they find her sexually attractive. The results are usually unsettling. That's just one mild example out of hundreds. As some of these screenshots show, there's plenty of creepy conversations going on over there. Needless to say, it's a pretty disturbing subreddit to scroll through. It'd be nice to think that all of the members were just trolls, but a quick glimpse at all of their accounts will show you they're being completely sincere. Earlier this year, Truesels was quarantined by the site, something that only happens to communities dedicated to shocking or highly offensive content. If you do manage to get in there though, you'll find all manner of messed up posts that you probably wish you'd avoided. That is if you value your faith in humanity. Even if you only have a little bit left in you, Truesels will kill off whatever's left. It's just a sad place to be. Hey guys, Lazy here, and thank you very much for listening. Yeah, sorry for the delay on this video. Either way, I hope you enjoyed it. A lot of stuff going on at the minute in real life, applications and all that. Also, I was thinking about making another video in this sort of style, but with 2 Chan posts instead. I'm sure if I looked hard enough I could rustle a few creepy posts up, but we'll see. Next time's gonna be a story video anyway, so don't worry about that. More stories on the way soon. If you did like this video, then be sure to head on down south and smash that like button, or I'll smash you. Subscribe and join the Lazy Legion if you haven't already, and I'll be back soon with something new for you to enjoy. Until then guys, you stay spooky, and remember, the best things happen in the dark. Number 1. I used to be a corrections officer. At my jail, we had a non-violent criminal in lockdown. He'd been put with a violent one. The bad dude killed the other guy with a coloring pencil, put it straight through his eyeball. I was working the female facility, so I only heard all of the chatter over the radio. Speaking of eyeballs, we also had a guy pull his own one out. The worst thing I dealt with though were the stories when I was talking to my girls. There was this one girl that none of the other COs could stand. Let's call her Jess. She was constantly in trouble and getting put into lockdown. I had a very good rapport with her though, and occasionally she'd open up to me. I came in one day, and Jess was in a cell acting out. It turns out that her aunt, who was in the same facility, had just been sentenced to death. This woman, Margaret Allen, in case anyone's interested in looking this up, had killed a woman by cutting her throat and pouring bleach into it, as well as into her mouth. Then she buried her alive. Anyway, Jess was upset by this, and even I was like, look, that fucking bitch deserves death. You need to behave and not get into any more trouble or lose sleep over this. So she proceeded to tell me why she loved her so much. As a kid, around 6, Jess was in an apartment with a few other little cousins when some guy broke in to kill her parents. They were cooking crack at the time. Her 10-year-old cousin shoos all of the kids into a closet and tells them to keep quiet. Jess's best friend, the same age as her, hears screaming and runs out. She's also shot dead. The oldest kid wasn't able to stop her. Long story short, this aunt who had just been sentenced to death took her and all of the other kids in, kind of raised them on and off, and always made sure they were taken care of. They all lived in the same apartment complex. Those of us who aren't raised in such poverty and violence have no idea how bad kids in this country fucking have it. Number 2. 2 months after my brother and his wife bought a new house, they had to go out of town and needed their cats fed. Their house and my office are both a good drive from my apartment, but only a few minutes from each other. My brother said if I wanted, I could